And hello, welcome to Friday night's after show on Narrative TV. It's good to be with you tonight with Greg Oliar, our regular here. How are you doing, Greg?
I am well, Zev. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to be back with you. And a very special guest tonight, Michael Edison Hayden from the Southern Poverty Law Center, who's written this incredible piece. You've seen it, Greg, about Twitter and about the connections between Jack Dorsey and a few right-wing extremist people, like really extremist people. So we'll go through some of that tonight with Michael. We want to say good evening to you, Michael, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Zev. Appreciate it.
So tell me a little bit about the genesis of this piece. I mean, it's sort of, I think you were describing it before we got on the air as the story no one else wanted to write.
Well, the way I described it was, it's like if you have to clean out a bunch of junk in the garage, and like every week is going by, and it's like sometimes years go by, right? And you just nobody wants to do it. That's the way I viewed writing this, which is something that's just like sitting on my head for 5 years. Just thinking about what's happened to Twitter, or what Twitter has enabled. And why. And I'm just like, this is going to be annoying. This is going to be some really annoying work, because we all know that Jack Dorsey follows Mike Cernovich, and he followed him, while he was publishing Disinformation about a number of subjects. And then, why hasn't that really been reported out? Or if it has been reported out, most of what you see is like people tweeting about it, right? Just people tweeting angrily about how the site is allowing far-right extremists and allowing disinformation to happen. And I also felt that Twitter had gotten off very easy. I don't want to say anything too nice about Facebook, but they've taken a big hit since 2018 or so. I just remember 2018 things started to really get tough for Facebook. People became more and more critical of Facebook. There were more stories, like every kind of digital publication, BuzzFeed type publication started to hit Facebook with these stories, and Twitter would just kind of exist. And it's partly, I think, just not to go too long on this one thing, but I think there's also, journalists get their bread from Twitter. I mean, this is like, we need this website to, like, for content, to get people to reach people and things like that. People are, I think, really scared to.
It's a full-time job for me, and without Twitter, I'd have no job, right? So I mean, it's really important in terms of.
Yeah. I'm a spokesperson now, and I'm a spokesperson now, and sometimes I have to, speak. And how else are you going to reach people? It's really difficult. So I think, that combination of things made me want to put it off for a long time. But then after the insurrection, I felt like it just had to be done, and it had to be done thoroughly. And I'm not done yet. There's a lot more to write about what Twitter has done specifically to journalism that we didn't get into here, and just how it has really warped, in the guise of like, well, both sides were representing both sides. What is really done to warp the conversation around journalism. And there seems to be, to me, an agenda behind it, whether it's, like a really calculated thing on the part of Twitter's executives, or just a simple way of just knowing that this is a way to make money.
It's so powerful, right? I mean, when they took Donald Trump off Twitter, it changed the entire dynamic for the political discourse in America. That one move was so important. So, it certainly lends credence to your argument here that something needs to be done in order to contain what is this increasing division that Twitter has given America. There was big news today, though. Nick Fuentes, I think is how you say his name, who became a superstar in right-wing circles after Charlottesville. He was finally taken off Twitter today. He was suspended. Tell us a little bit about how long he's been on Twitter and why this is so significant.
So the Fuentes kind of just floated around the ether up until Charlottesville, and Twitter verified his account in the immediate aftermath of that. And
really,
he had no discernible credentials outside of hosting a YouTube show in which he voiced many like white supremacist talking points. And eventually espousing views that were overtly fascists, praising Mussolini, talking about wanting to give a Roman salute, also known as a Hitler salute, to Trump.
Mm.
So he didn't really have much to make him a person to listen to at the time that they verified him, but it really built up his celebrity, enabled him to build this whole America First PAC movement, this America First movement, which, really, I think at its core, the irony is it really doesn't seek to undermine America, it turn America into something that serves only the people who believe in that cult. But it really does further America's decline, things like America First PAC. And you have people like Paul Gosar, who is one of the most extreme politicians in America, going to speak at the PAC. I mean, you can say with confidence that almost none of that would have happened without Twitter. And he says it himself. He says he got suspended from YouTube. He got suspended from DLive even after we reported on DLive, which is filled with white nationalist content. And Fuentes himself said, "Hey, we were able to retain 80% of our viewership to our stream because we could just say to people, 'Hey, check me out on Twitter.'"
Right. So they build their audiences out of these big stunts like Stop the Steal or the events at Charlottesville. They gain that traction, and then they become really important mouthpieces for these movements on the back of Twitter. And Jack Dorsey has verified, or Twitter verified, this guy way back in 2017.
Yeah. Well, we don't know if he did it or whoever did it, but whatever it is, Jack Dorsey should be aware of who Nick Fuentes is at this point.
At this point, yeah.
I mean, if you are a person who can read and has read a newspaper, you have an idea of that some people did something at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, and you can go from there and find out how many people of those people were celebrities that became celebrities almost exclusively because of Twitter. So this is not a point that should escape Jack Dorsey. He should know that who he is and that he's on the platform.
Absolutely. Greg, have you ever spoken to Jack Dorsey?
No.
Michael, have you ever spoken to Jack Dorsey?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't.
I've never spoken to him. But
He maybe
people
talk to me if I reach out about Bitcoin or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's something he would talk about.
But two people that have spoken to him, one is Ali Alexander, of all people. They became really good friends. And, well,
according to Alexander.
Yeah, yes. Take that.
Dorsey just says he makes interesting points, but he's never denied it. Just for the
they've hung out together, clearly. They've talked to each other. Ali Alexander is on the very fringe of Republican politics here. I mean, he is as far as you can go, right? And why is Jack Dorsey even associating with this guy? I mean, there must be an endless number of reasons why this is bad optics for him.
Well, I mean, I think that Alexander is the type of guy who can effectively get in people's ears. He is absolutely dangerous, as proven by what happened with the Stop the Steal movement. He repeatedly used Twitter to publish disinformation, including disinformation that's connected to foreign intelligence. We're talking about he supported Macron leaks, for example, along with Jack Pacific, when he's a much smaller, thing. I mean, he is an effective communicator in some ways. It's hard to imagine that from our perspective, but he's effective at listening to people who want to hear why things that could make them rich and powerful are good. And, I mean, you could imagine somebody like Dorsey, who is profiting so much off of extremism and chaos, that somebody who is smooth talking, the very thing that is destroying our culture, justifying it to him. You can imagine why some of that stuff might land well with somebody like Dorsey, who wants to keep that profit flowing.
So you think this is all about profit for Dorsey? He's basically profiting off chaos. He's just an agent of chaos and therefore just making money off it. That's what he.
Well, we can say with certainty that he's worth over $10 billion, which is, over $10 billion more than I have. Now, now that doesn't necessarily mean that he's only acting out of a profit mode.
Right.
I think there's probably some triage here, where profit is going to come first, and that means that he's willing to go against whatever ideology he might have in order to keep that profit going. So that's why sometimes Twitter can be shamed into taking some sort of action. But from the sources with whom I've spoke, he's a libertarian who operates under a libertarian worldview, and that worldview enables him to see people like, Mike Cernovich or something like that, and in a sort of positive free speech argument. Well, he's making interesting points. That's what he said about Ali Alexander, is making interesting points.
Right.
Right? We need to be open-minded to all kinds of speech and stuff like that, which is absolutely true. If this were some sort of perfect scenario in which social media was like a place where everybody could talk, and it's very complicated. It's not about freedom of speech, it's about freedom of reach, how many people you can reach at one time. And there is a reason why you can't show hardcore pornography on ABC, at 10 o'clock at night. There's a reason why we don't do certain things. And the reach of this disinformation that's been shown, we've seen the after effects of it. We've seen what it does. Twitter is not a neutral platform for speech, where everyone gets a shot to say their point. It is a place that can be easily hijacked to harm. And that's what's been happening for a very long time.
What's up with the way he appears? I mean, I'm not questioning it, but I mean, really, what is going on with the long beards? And I know because he goes to Myanmar and meditates and does all
That's
retreating,
cool.
but I mean, the appearance is quite striking. It's not your typical, I don't know, it's a little different. But I shouldn't be.
It looks like a basis for like a doom metal band or something like that.
He claims to be a punk guy.
I was going to say he's the star of a B-movie knockoff of the Lord of the Rings trilogy or something.
Right, he does look like that. So
Thou shalt not pass.
In Game of Thrones, wasn't there a character that looked like this as well?
Yeah, I guess in Game of Thrones. I mean, I think that first of all, the article is really excellent, and there's a lot in there to think about. And what you said about it being complicated is true. I mean, I think that he is, to some degree, one of these guys, which there are many of them in the tech world, white dudes who are like, no, we should be able to say whatever we want. And that's just kind of their thing. They do this libertarianism thing because for whatever reason, as brilliant as they are with tech, their social consciousness has not evolved past 10th grade. Which is about when you should realize that all of the Ayn Rand shit is just, YA garbage. But I think the problem, as I see it on Twitter with the, it speaks to what you said about reach and not applying the rules fairly across the board. Like if you're watching a basketball game and an NBA game, and the refs are giving your team or calling fouls on your team and not the other team, you get pissed off. Because, you say, I don't care how the game is called. I want it to be called fairly. And I don't feel like that's really what's going on there to some degree. Like, I'll give you I'm just speaking anecdotally here. It seems like in my bubble of anti-Trump and Trump Russia Twitter, a lot of the people that were banned got banned because they went after two people in particular, Tommy La, whatever her name is, and Ann Coulter. Say anything remotely bad about those two and you were banned. But people could come in and say horrible. Yeah, her. Some people could come in and say the same things or horribly rotten things about other people, and they were fine. It was almost like those two people in particular, it was just hands off, And to the degree that you started to wonder, me as an impartial observer, what's going on here? Are they like on some list that they're being protected? I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying it felt that way. And it's the same thing with the verification. A lot is made about who gets verified and who doesn't get verified. And I'm verified, and it's great to be verified. It really is. It has perquisites that you unverified people, Zev, can only dream of.
I know.
Yeah.
And I do dream of it. And I may dream of it for a very long time. I don't think it's going to happen in the near future.
So, but there's a utility to it. But ultimately, all it's supposed to do is confirm that you are who you say you are. It's not supposed to be you're famous or you're a celebrity or you're this or you're that. It's supposed to be, as I understand it, this person is verified to be who they say they are, which in my view means many more people should be verified than are currently.
That was
What's
the old
happened,
verification
though,
rule. Just to clarify, they did put out a new verification policy this year, which does seem to attach an importance to the verification based on status or experience or working for an important organization or what have you.
Which is fine,
yeah.
but I don't know. I just feel like then they're changing the rules midstream.
Right.
You know, if you're going to verify these little white nationalist pricks and not you and not Noel Castler and not AG and these other people who have big media, also have big media platforms, by the way. Narrative is not it's not nothing.
No.
Mueller, she wrote in Daily Beans, ain't nothing. Why
crazy.
is she not verified? And this little fucking asshole is verified.
Yeah.
Nick, whatever his name is. It's ridiculous.
Well,
and that's what I'm talking about. It's not being applied evenly across the board, which should fly in the face of his libertarian principles. Damn it.
Well, I will just tell you what I know about some people who have applied for verification. Some of the researchers with whom we work at SPLC, Megan Squire is one, for instance, who's one of the best, I think, disinfo folks out there. She got her verification restricted, and you have to wonder. I mean, it's like, oh, okay, maybe we don't want to attract more attention to people who are making us look bad. That is always a concern. That they don't want that. But I think that it's much more than like, oh, we're willing to verify this person and not willing to do that. They are taking people who have no credentials at all,
right,
in a media sense, and making them into people. Like it's like creating characters for the platform, and that is where it does feel activist to me. Right? You take somebody like Jack Posobiec, who, okay, let's just quickly run down because he's somebody I know more probably than almost any extremist that I cover. Jack Posobiec used to run a Game of Thrones Twitter account called Angry Game of Thrones Fan, and he used to post this kind of race baiting. Racist material, like when there was a new Star Wars movie coming out, he would the Angry Game of Thrones fan was highlighting the degree to which Star Wars was using more people of color in a negative way. And we saw like Chuck Johnson, who I'm sure you guys are well familiar with some of the material you cover. Chuck Johnson's Got News. I don't know whether Posobiec was in contact with him at that time or not. He became close with him later, certainly. But he would publish from the Angry Game of Thrones. He embedded some of his tweets into Got News things, and Posobiec appeared alongside Roger Stone at the Republican National Convention in Cleveland. Followed him to a bookstore appearance. Started allegedly approached Richard Spencer and described himself as saying, I like what you do. We like what you do. This screenshot is January 2017. He was verified after this. Roger and I like what you do. I'm Roger Stone's man, right? And then he went on to lead a number of big disinformation campaigns, which are really saturated with foreign influence. I mean, Pizzagate is one of them. Another one is, of course, the Macron leaks saga. These are all things that were done on Twitter and whatever.
Also, the Arizona recount. I mean, that's whole thing is part of his world.
Oh, I mean, that is literally all he does. And this is a long way of saying that this guy posed as, what I don't know how else are we supposed to interpret former CBS News on this bio that you're showing here? Oh, yeah. What is that? I was like, what is that?
Yeah, I worked there. I don't recall him be working there.
Yeah, the subtext is that I'm a former CBS News journalist. I don't know what anyone else would think about it, but he never worked for CBS News. I contacted them. Wow. I contacted local affiliates in Pennsylvania and in DC. They said that no, he's never worked for us. These are places where he's lived. So he was a reserve naval intelligence officer. Didn't have ton of time to work for CBS. So what is all this? Where did this come from?
So he doesn't work for
Um,
CBS News, does get verified. I
yeah.
used to work for CBS News for real and don't get verified. That's annoying. But
Well, no, but now, yeah, you should try putting firmer CBS News in your exactly
I
like
do.
that and
It's
see if
in
it
the
works.
first line.
But what I find scary, I guess, about the way Posobiec became a guy, is that he had no credentials, nothing to show other than these disinformation campaigns. He worked for 1 month for Rebel TV, which in itself is like, why would that be verified in its own right? I mean, it is an extreme far right, racist channel with tons of racist content. So he worked for a month there while he did Macron leaks. And there's really nothing else other than doing Pizzagate, the Melania stuff, Rape Melania, if you recall that thing that he did. He did a lot of these fake Antifa things where he was blaming Antifa for different violent incidents. He was just conjuring up that specter. And he
He's the
really had
chief
nothing else.
gaslighter, right? I mean, for the right wing, basically, he does everything.
Yes,
So
and so Dorsey and his company would have ample evidence that Jack Posobiec is really nothing but a disinfo operative.
right,
He
right,
called himself a political operative, right? And we know he publishes disinformation, so he's really a for-hire disinfo guy. And they verify him, and he goes on to get over 1 million followers. And then what is he doing with the over 1 million followers? He's doing the Hunter Biden op. He's doing Stop the Steal. He eventually got a gig with One America News despite not being a journalist. Not that they do journalism, but I mean, they actually so leaden, but they put him on TV. I mean, I don't consider myself a very lively TV anchor type guy, but I mean, like, you should see Posobiec. I mean, he seems like he's had a lobotomy or something when he's talking to it. And this is really all Twitter. Twitter made this guy a thing. It's like creating like some kind of sock puppet from scratch. He is just a guy who posts disinformation.
so
So it
interesting
makes you
because
highly suspicious about how the platform operates. It certainly makes me suspicious.
well, because
Well, what about
go ahead.
the followers, the 1 million followers? I mean, presumably many of those 1 million followers are not real, and I think this is another problem: is that people get onto these things, they're perceived in a certain way, and suddenly you look and they have 500,000 followers, and somebody stumbling in sees the badge and all those followers and thinks, oh, okay, well, this must be somebody, which, as you point out, he's not. He's a schmo.
Yeah, the Twitter leans heavily on appearances. It leans very heavily on appearances, which is why it is also so toxic for journalism, because journalism is all about getting into the ugly stuff. It's about a bit, it's not necessarily always the nicest profession. We have to do some dirty work. And we find some dirty things, and etc. And and the material has to be detailed. There's got to be a lot of it. And when you translate it to a platform that deals almost completely in surfaces with, like, how many likes, how many retweets, what does it look like, what does the headline say? It atrophies on the profession as a whole. And no better example than the fact that people like Posobiec and Cernovich, who are best known for posting disinformation that led to horrific harassment campaigns of innocent people, like in the case of Pizzagate, are treated as journalists. These people are treated on the right by people who are angry and are into the Trump thing as journalists, like they're providing information, when in reality they are providing just gasoline to a fire.
Right. It's so interesting. I've argued for a long time. We're in the middle of a disinformation war, a civil war, or maybe it's a global and a civil war at the same time, but it's a disinformation war. So the means with which you get information out is the way to stop that war. If you stop Fox News, you stop Newsmax, you stop Twitter, you stop Facebook, that's how that war ends, because there's no way to get that information, mostly from outside sources, to the American public. And it strikes me that what you're talking about here is that Twitter is really leaning into one side of this information war. And that is incredibly troubling because that side happens to represent a lot of foreign adversaries as well as many domestic terrorists.
Yeah, I mean, we last time I was on here, it was me and Luke O'Brien, and we talked a lot about the Capitol violence. And I can't remember if we got into this or not, but a really big detail for me is the fact that Stop the Steal as a hashtag, the first people to ever launch that hashtag did so in 2016.
Right.
Okay. This is a long thing. And it consider that the premise of it, right, is to undermine is basically the validity of a democratic election. That is the whole point. If you lose, Stop the Steal is there to lean on. Now, we didn't see what could have happened with it because Trump became president.
Right.
But Roger Stone first brought it out at a time when actually, what really interesting detail about it, could have been stolen from him or stolen from Trump because it was actually to stop the RNC, believe it or not, from trying to dump Trump at the convention. Right, because there was a lot of pressure for them to do it. So maybe there was some actual legitimacy. Stop the Steal, the hashtag, that they could have tried to swap out somebody who they felt they had better control over at that time.
But they planned it. I mean, clearly, it's something that they planned. I got to fit in a break. Let's do that, and then we'll come back and talk about some other things on the other side of this. Where are my glasses? These are the things I'm talking about right now. These guys, although they're very dirty, but these are called blue blocks. And they are great because one of the things that they do is they block out different shades of light. So as I'm pulling up the script here, it says, I'm sorry about this. Where is it? Apparently, I stare at my computer screen for hours every day. And I've really noticed that, actually, I noticed a couple of things about staring at the computer for hours every day. One thing I notice is that I get a lot more typos the longer I stare at the screen. And then, sometimes my eyes get really blurry. Sometimes I get headaches. It's just a lot of eye strain when you're staring at a monitor for, hours and hours every day. So Blue Blocks uses color-filtered lenses to heal a variety of of complaints in people's lives. Now, these are called the blue light computer glasses. They're clear lenses, and they help with headaches, sore eyes, digital eye strain, watery eyes, and fatigue. Here's a closer look at them so you can see what they're all about. Can you guys still hear me? I think you can. I hope you can. Now, there's 4 of these different kinds of Blue Blocks lights, sunglasses. There is the Summer Glow that helps you with low mood and migraines and sleep for improving your sleep. And then the other one is the blue light I told you about. So maybe it's only 3 sunglasses. Then they also have a sunglass range as well. So Blue Blocks ships worldwide in rapid time. They have easy returns and exchanges. And you can go to blueblocks.com/narrative and use the coupon code narrative to save 15%. That's blueblocks.com, BLUBLOX.com/narrative, and use coupon code narrative, NARATIV, to save 15%. There you go. So now you know all about Blue Blocks. And we're back.
Now you look good at those blue blocks, Zev.
I know.
Good on you.
Very nice. Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice glasses. You should really, if you're interested in glasses that block blue light, then these are the ones to go for because they're made by real opticians, I guess, and not by mass-produced warehouses in Asia. Not that you needed to know that, but there you go. Now you know. So let's get back to Twitter. What do you think was the thing with Fuentes today? Do you think that was a response to your article? It seems like that's the buzz on the internet. I mean, that your piece came out this week. There's another piece by the ADL this week, but that 2 days later, Fuentes is gone from Twitter.
Zeus with the thunderbolt.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Well, I think it's not surprising that he personally blamed ADL, and I think he did that largely to feed into anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. When I think ADL it enables him to talk about these conspiracy theories that neo-Nazis believe about Jewish control of the country and things like that. I personally do think it was in response to that, but it's also a response to reporting that we have done consistently on Fuentes for going back months now. We're reporting on him, and what he was doing on DLive before and reaching out to Twitter then. What bothers me about it is that it took this much. Because they shouldn't be embarrassed and have to have their hands forced or something like that. I mean, perhaps the pitch of outrage was so high about Fuentes that they just had to do it, and something like Jack Posobiec is not at the moment. Twitter gets away with this stuff when they feel that they can, and they don't have to do the right thing. They're not going to do the right thing. As I mentioned to you when we were off, Twitter verified Stephen Miller before he ever tweeted anything. Again,
that's really shady. That's really shady.
He was in the White House, and Twitter chose to give him a verified handle before he ever tweeted anything. You can say, oh, well, of course he's verified. He's very famous. He's like, the head of the Republican Party now, basically, in so many ways. I mean, he's like on Fox all the time. He's one of the most influential figures in the Republican Party.
It's getting verified.
Yeah, you can
really
say
helps.
that.
I mean, it really gives you, it really gives you a step up, presumably. I mean, I haven't seen the quantification of this, but I mean, it must be that a lot more people who are verified get followed than people who don't.
You can certainly say that Stephen Miller is, a famous person, so therefore he whatever. But I mean, again, they have these policies against hate and so forth, and I don't think there's any more immediate symbol of hate than Stephen Miller because of what he believes about non-white people, what he believes about Muslims, what he believes about people from Latin America. He admires policies that are immigration policies that are based on eugenics. So this is the exact type of person that we as a society should be saying, like, this is not someone we want to promote on our thing. But yet, in his redemption tour that has been going on the right here, where he's on Fox like basically every night, he's basically a Fox talking head. He's talking in CPAC. That verified handle helps. It helps to say, like, this guy's okay. These views. I mean, maybe they don't care like what a Muslim person feels about that, but I mean, he really genuinely believes that people from the developing world are less than human based upon his emails, based upon everything we have seen from him.
Yeah. It's really, the approach that they've taken with Fuentes and Miller is really interesting in light of other people they've also banned or suspended, like Laura Loomer. On the one hand, they do this action, they do like a small action. They take someone like Fuentes off, but then, Dorsey will appear in the Rolling Stone magazine praising Laura Loomer for her protest. She said that, I love that she came to, she locked herself or chained herself to the Twitter doors because she was banned by Twitter. And he said, I love the protest. I'm a punk. My music when I was growing up was punk. I can't really read this. Sorry. Hackers are punk. It's a questioning. I can't read that. Can you guys read it? I can't read it.
I can read it. It's questioning the system, man. Not because you hate it, but because you want to make it better. What is this guy like? Again, is he like 15 fucking years old? Like, grow the fuck up, man.
Yeah, but it's also like
punk is for children. It's not for adolescents. It's not for grown men. No. Sorry.
It's true. He seems very.
I just want to say I don't fully endorse that comment, Greg, but
you know what I mean. The ethos, the idea that yes. Ethos should like trump everything is right. Insane.
Sure.
Well, it's anarchic, is what it is. And
sure, yes.
I think that
our punk rock should mature. The degree to which we are punk rock must mature along.
Those of us who grew up on Billy Joel and Simon and Garfunkel don't have these kinds of problems. That's all I'm saying. So,
as a person who grew up in Long Island, I also appreciate that.
but and this is I don't know much about all this tech stuff, so I'm going to say right now, shout out Brett Petticord who's watching. My understanding is this is not a Twitter specific problem, although as Michael has pointed out, Twitter. I'm echoing Zeb all of a
I
sudden.
know. It's because of my earphones.
I don't know why.
Should be fine. Now I can't hear you.
We lost. I can't hear him.
I lost you. Now I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Michael, but I can't hear Greg. I don't know what happened. I didn't touch anything. Sorry, Greg. You're gonna have to join us again. You're gonna have to log off and log on. You could still hear us, or maybe your microphone is not on.
Well, what I was going to say in reference to that, like the sort of the punk rock ethos, thing and all that. What the far right does can appeal to your most, to the people who are who have the most primitive interpretation of what punk rock is, right? Which is why you'll see like the InfoWars guy, I forgot his name now, Prison Paul Watson. Okay. He likes to frame it as like, conservatism is punk rock, even though what are they conserving? I mean, this is just racism. Yeah, I mean, you can see it because you understand to whatever degree that that there is a liberal majority in the country. You go to your supermarket and they're selling pride flags and stuff like that now in some places in the Northeast during in June. There are the country is changing, the culture is changing in the United States in some ways, and you will absolutely get that conflict when you do the opposite of these things, when you are reactionary. And coming into conflict with that culture, if you're not a sophisticated person or a sophisticated thinker, you can easily confuse that, I think, with punk rock, like necessary punk rock. The reality of it is, though, that you are doing things in the interest of those with a lot of money, a lot of power. White supremacy supports billionaires. Right, it supports people who have a ton of money. That's why $4.5 million went to VDARE in 2019, a white nationalist nonprofit, in the run-up to the election. These things serve the interest of the Mercers. They serve the interest
against the Constitution in some ways. I mean,
of course,
you get to the point where these guys are running an illegal thing. I mean, it's no, it's non-democratic.
I mean, my last thought is that white nationalists who act like they are up against the system or whatever are really only serving the interests of the elites, the type of people who don't want us to come together on climate change, things like that. I mean, this benefits people who are very rich and would rather us talking about culture war things rather than solving these problems like a lake inside of a subway station.
There's a great quote that I found from Dorsey, and again, I might have trouble reading it. So, Greg, why don't you speak for a little bit, and I'll see if I can pull it up so I have the right.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes, but you're not on your right microphone. I can tell.
Oh, hold on.
It's one of those Friday nights.
All right, how's that?
Now you sound beautiful. What a great voice you have.
I just want to say I agree with everything Jack Dorsey says. Jack Dorsey is God. Twitter is wonderful. Thank you. And good night. So, I was going to say before that it's not a Twitter-wide problem. It's a Silicon Valley-wide problem, as I understand it. Right now, what's happening there, and again, Brett, thanks for hipping me to this, is that it's akin to the time period in the United States, pre all the laws against monopolization, where, the big companies were accumulating and buying each other out, and there was not yet laws against doing that. So there was monopolies, there was price fixing, there was all this bad anti-capitalist stuff, and the government had to step in and begin regulating, which happened pretty steadily, from Teddy Roosevelt through when dipshit fuckhead Ronald Reagan decided that in his addled brain that regulation was somehow bad, because who doesn't want tainted meat, you know? Anyway, we don't have that right now in Silicon Valley. We don't have that with these companies. This shit is the Wild West, and it's run and managed mostly by these libertarian dudes like Jack Dorsey, who is, you know, he's not unique. He is emblematic of the larger viewpoint, as I understand it, of what goes on out there, which is why it's mostly dudes. It's mostly, they have this libertarian bent. And in my experience, again, anecdotally, these white guys who are libertarians like that tend not to be the greatest with women stuff. They tend to have problems a little bit with, you know, how they treat women, and that pervades the entire subculture out there. And there is no regulation on these things. So you have people like that in charge of what goes out on the platform, and they're pretty much indemnified. You know, if Twitter could be sued because Jack Posobiec put something out there that's disinformation, it would vanish fucking tomorrow. But it can't be, because they say we're not publishers. It's just freedom of speech, man. We're just doing our thing. It's just technology, man. It's, you know, it's punk, man. So that's the bullshit excuse. But the reality is that Zuckerberg and Dorsey and whoever owns Clubhouse and these things, they need to be on some way accountable for, you know, the stuff that goes out there, just like anybody else does. And if there's, I don't know what the answer is. I'm not a lawyer. I'm certainly not that kind of lawyer, but there is no regulation right now at all. And the rules that affect them do nothing. There's no financial incentive for them to clean this shit up. And that's the problem. If there was, it would be clean.
That's a good point. Is that there's a financial incentive to have them, you know, keep it bad, and there is, you know, like I use the example of like showing pornography on ABC at 10 o'clock or something like that.
Ratings would go up.
The rating, well, certainly, certainly there would be some trouble. There would be some trouble in Middle America with that, but you might get ratings to go up. Look, you know, when we talk about, okay, so if you have somebody like a Mike Cernovich or something like that creating content for your site, okay, and you compare them to somebody like me, who I don't know how many thousand tweets I've done, you know, thousands, maybe I've deleted a bunch. I don't know what the total is, but we're talking about these guys will tweet like 50 to 100 times a day. Cassandra Fairbanks, who is one of the people we mentioned in that in this analysis, I calculated to get to where she is, she tweeted 50 on average 50 times a day. So they don't. It's not only that they hit nerves that make people keep people clicking. They are also dedicated to generating material for this platform. They will live on the platform. So it makes it's you know, it's much harder for them to get rid of somebody who is keeping their stock up, you know, quite frankly.
Well, that's like Greg and me. We spend a lot of time on the Twitter. It's I
don't tweet as much. You don't tweet 100 times. You don't tweet 100 times a day, though.
No.
And like I mean, I think we got calculated in the Posobiec series, it was like 80 to 100 times a day over a span of 2 years.
Wow.
A day. And that includes retweets and whatever. Okay. Yeah. But this means like, you know, wake up, Twitter. This Twitter, I mean, you know, I'd hate to be his children. I mean, it's a really insane way to live, in my opinion. I hate being on Twitter, although I use it. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, they dedicate themselves to this platform. They do periscopes. They do, you know, when they're not tweeting, they are, you know, so you are asking them to also get rid of somebody who is dedicated to their brand, whereas many sane reporters, you know, have legitimate criticisms of this. So they're not going to want to listen to them. They're going to want to listen to the people who are flooding the site with content and keeping their business going.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting what you both are saying there, because the lack of regulation is fascinating, considering the impact they've had. And let's go to this quote from Dorsey, where he said, This is from the Rolling Stone interview that he did. We definitely help divide people. We definitely create isolation. We definitely make it easy for people to confirm their own bias. We've only given them one tool, which is to follow an account that will 90% confirm whatever bias you have. And it doesn't allow them to seek other perspectives. It contributes to tribalism, it contributes to nationalism, and it's counter to what we need the world to consider, which is, how do we solve the climate change? There's no country anywhere on the planet that's going to solve it alone. How do we solve AI taking all our jobs, or nuclear war? These are global conversations, and it's got to be pointed in that direction. Right now, it's pointed inwards. It's the first part of that is kind of stunning to me, because he really is aware of what he's doing, but he doesn't seem to think it's very serious.
And then he's supporting Tulsi Gabbard in the thing, which is just, you know,
yeah. Any thoughts on that, Michael? On that Rolling Stone quote?
I mean, I don't, but if you want to mention the Tulsi Gabbard thing, right, which you brought up, that I actually do have something to think about, which is Tulsi Gabbard is a perfect example of what social media kind of does or can do, I guess, which is the best way, which is like, you have a whole crop of people who kind of come from liberalism or have like liberal beliefs and stuff like that, who take that that worldview, and once they filter it into the engagement machine, and it makes perfect sense that somebody like Dorsey would be interested in her. Once you filter it, then they start doing stuff. It's like, you look at like Michael Tracy, Glenn Greenwald, these types of people who like sort of come from a not a fan. Okay, so but like, but they, once you start playing to the audience there, you see how the actual platform favors reactionary views, because you're going to start, like, when you're all about getting engagement, and those people I really believe are. I mean, I think they are just dive in every day. Like, let's get my engagement up. Let me say the thing that's going to get my engagement up. That's what they know how to do.
Right.
And you will tilt in a reactionary direction, because that is what is going to come off as profound. That's what's going to upset the user base,
right?
That Dorsey's user base. And like Tulsi Gabbard's politics are a perfect example of like engagement politics. If I start, okay, I'm a Democratic person, like whatever, and I'm like, okay, she went from being like aligned with, I guess, with some of Bernie Sanders' beliefs. I guess she had I shouldn't say that, because there was the Hindu nationalist stuff, but aligned with some of Bernie's talking points, and then gradually became more and more reactionary as she goes, because you are responding to the audience. The audience on Twitter will lap it up when you push buttons, and
right.
There's no better way to push buttons than to use reactionary talking points. And if I went out there on Twitter and I decided that I wanted to change who I was to make a living off of social media, the easiest way to do it would be to call myself like the based Arab or something like that, and then like start saying right, no, seriously, and then just like start saying things that were like, that just questioned whatever the liberal common sense of the day was. I mean, that's what Michael Tracy does. That's all he does. He is very limited in his ability as a writer. He can barely structure 800 words if you read him.
He can't even spell Tracy correctly. I mean, let's face it.
But he's very, he's very good at just like taking whatever's going to, piss people off, and whatever he views as the unsaid thing that day because of the liberal, base of users on Twitter, and just poking him by saying the opposite. And that's how he's built up his following on the platform. It is a platform, and it is a medium that favors reactionary views, because those are the views that make Jack Dorsey rich.
Well, we have to. There's one more thing I just want to piggyback on that, because I also think that it must be acknowledged. I wake up very early in the morning. I'm up at 5:30. All this shit is trending early in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
When it's fucking lunchtime in Moscow. So I'm going to say it's lunchtime in Riyadh, and it's lunchtime in Moscow. And that's why, because these assholes tweet this shit, and it's boosted by botnets in those countries. I'm convinced of that. And there are times, there's at least once, that I sabotaged one of their fucking hashtags because I got up early enough and wrote something counter to what it was and used it, and enough people tweeted it that it blew up in their face.
Yeah.
I Luke Skywalkered that shit. But like, this is a game that they play. They do their shit, and then it gets amplified by all of these accounts in countries that are, having their coffee while we're still sleeping.
Well, that sounds like superficially like it could be, like tinfoil hat or something like that, but it's not. It's actually demonstrably true. If you look at what happened with Macron leaks, for example, and these are like bots that primarily came from Russia that promoted Jack Pozovic's tweets. I was really a skeptic about some of that stuff until I started reporting on it. And then I'm like, okay, well, that's how it happened. That's how, Pozovic, who is just, publishing this, gibberish, promoting this Russian intelligence hack, was going from, 10 retweets to 1,000 and like that. Right. I mean, it was largely automation. And you see these guys, some of these guys who, again, are Twitter characters, and Pozovic is always the first example that comes to mind. I think I calculated at one point during the Hunter Biden thing, in which, I mean, he was just absolutely blasting off on Twitter, like an average of 6,500 retweets per tweet over like a 6-tweet span in an hour. Wow. And I ask you, like, but I ask you, like, how many times do you like retweet the same person multiple times in an hour? We don't do it. Like, I may have retweeted twice about this appearance. I feel weird to spam people with one, right? You selectively retweet friends and stuff like that. I retweet Hannah Gase a lot because she's my colleague. And we're always DMing with each other on SPLC's work chat. That's a little bit, those type of things happen. But it's very rare that you just like keep retweeting your favorite person 6 times in a row. So who are these people? And the reality is it's a lot of automation, a lot of bots. I remember an Andy No repost of his video in which he was beaten, in which there was like 39,000 retweets, some kind of insane thing 2 months after it was a hot topic. And so who were those people? Theoretically it could have happened, but I just didn't see it organically, like in the wild on Twitter. I just saw the numbers.
Well, that's the fear, right? Is that they're leaning into one side of this debate, but really it's a civil war that we're having. Like, they're putting so much emphasis on the right side that I don't know if that really is an accurate reflection of how many people really feel those things in the country. I mean, we think that there's 40%. Would there be 40% who support MAGA if we didn't have all these Twitter retweets and all this amplification going on Fox News and elsewhere? Probably not. I mean, there's sort of this industrial scale information machine that's dividing America, and it's super serious. It's bringing us to the brink of the end of democracy. And yet we talk about Twitter like it's just a thing, but it's a part of this machine, it feels like, that's absolutely tearing this country apart.
Yeah, I agree.
We'll be right back because Greg and I have something to talk about. And you get a few minutes, Michael, to hang out. So guess what? Guess what, Greg? Free bacon.
It's Moink time.
Free bacon for a year. So do you like bacon, or are you a steak person? Which are you?
We've covered this. I'm a steak person. I'm more of a steak person.
You are more of a steak person, and you ought to be more of a steak person. Well, right now you can get the taste of moinkbox.com. It will bring you. Oh gosh, sorry. Can you say that? I can't read this. I'm sorry. My eyesight is really screwing me up today.
You got to put those glasses on. You got to put the glasses.
Actually,
back.
like zooming in glasses, and I'm looking at a tiny little screen here, and I'm not sure what's going on.
I know. I'm teasing you.
In a little bit here because I don't know what's going on. Oh, that's better. There you go. So Boink, that's Moo and Oink. By the way, I discovered that's how they came up with the name. It's Moo, Oink, Moink. They deliver grass-fed and grass-finished beef and lamb, pastured pork and chicken, and wild-caught Alaskan salmon direct to your door, helping family farmers become financially independent outside of big agriculture. Their animals are raised outdoors, their fish swim wild in the ocean, and Moink meat is free of antibiotics, hormones, sugar, and all the other junk you find prepackaged in the meat aisle. Sign up to moinkbox.com. That's moinkbox.com/narrative to get a year of bacon for free. And then pick what meats you want delivered with your first box. And then you can change that every month or cancel at any time.
It's,
great?
I since last time we did this, I did a little more research on this,
Yeah.
and I got the bug. The New York strip steaks, Ev. Do you
got
like
it.
New York strip steak?
I
Some people
love.
prefer these big porterhouse. I like a New York strip. Okay.
Right.
And you can't go to the store and buy stuff like this because the meat here is not the supermarkets don't get the good stuff.
Right.
So it's important. If you want good steak, you have to do it this way. Sorry, it's just
So you got the
just the
box,
rules.
and what's in the box? Just lots of good meats.
It's good stuff, man. It's like there's pork, there's steaks, there's
So hungry.
cuts of meat, and and the bacon. So
That's
good
that's
stuff.
really good. By the way, Moink was founded by an 8th generation farmer who was featured on Shark Tank. I watched the episode. She's great. I really like her. And host Kevin O'Leary said it's the best bacon he's ever tasted. Have you tasted the bacon yet?
Yeah, it's good.
It's also good.
You got to fry it correctly, but
Right.
yes.
Always.
Yeah.
And Jamie Siminoff, the creator of the Ring video doorbell, invested in Moink. They guarantee you'll say, oink, oink. I'm just so happy I got moinked.
Is it what? So it's the 8th generation farmer. Was the 9th generation back not a farmer? Like, what? How does that work? That's I don't know how that works, but it's good. There's obviously something in the DNA is good because this is good stuff.
Really. And they really are fighting to keep the local farmers viable in America, so they're a really good buy. Join the Moink movement today. Go to moinkbox.com/narrative NARATIV right now, and listeners to the show get free bacon for a year. That's 1 year of the best bacon you'll ever taste, but for a limited time. Spelled Moink, MOINK, box.com/narrative. That's moinkbox.com/narrative. The way we spell narrative, NARATIV. Oh, there you go. I want to try some of that. You're going to send me some. Will you please?
I'll send you some. It's good.
All right,
it's good.
okay.
It's good.
Here you go. Let's get Michael back in here. Are you baking a steak, Mr. Michael?
I apologize. I hope I'm not bad for the thing, but I'm actually a pescatarian, so I apologize.
They have fish too. They've got
fish. They have
salmon.
good fish.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm still.
And you know how salmon is. You get the salmon at the supermarket. It's like got weird color and
That's true. I've actually been grilling a lot of fish this year. Barbecuing tuna steaks and things like that. So I should been. Worked out pretty well.
A lot of home cooking.
Yeah. Salmon tinfoil grill is your friend. That's it. That's what I'm going to say.
Okay. All right. I'm interested in that.
What's going to happen here? I mean, Twitter's obviously very powerful. We've got this incredible divisive machine that's driving a wedge through the country. We're heading into another election where the wedge is going to get even wider. Do you think that Twitter's going to change? I mean, is there even a possibility that Twitter's going to change the way it views things?
I guess as a person who is focused on making those changes or letting those changes happen, I don't want to close the door on it. I guess, let's put it this way: I'm not impressed that they suspended Nick Fuentes today. I'm relieved more than anything else, but I'm not like, oh wow, okay, they're really going to change. I don't believe that. I mean, as I said, Pazovic, Cernovich, they made these people, right? And that's worse than anything else. They created them from scratch. So the answer is, I hold out a little bit of hope. But the only way for that to happen is the country has to change to such a degree that they feel like they can't get away with it anymore. I think, and that's really it. I don't feel like the leadership team itself is going to, they don't want to admit that any of their critics are right. That's the first thing.
Right.
I know that Twitter tried to would love to sell. I mean, I'm sure they'd love to get rid of their product by now, get it out of his hands. Dorsey would much rather focus on Bitcoin and Square and stuff. This must be a huge hassle. I mean, you're getting SPLC is yelling at you at the same day that that Trump is suing you. It's like, who wants this product? I mean, just take your money and run. That's what I would do. So, it's possible that new leadership, they could sell it, and possibly that it might change in some way there. But what I would really love, and this is some real utopian bullshit, I would really love to have, have it go, be replaced by a different platform for journalists, one in which the journalists could reach people without some of these problems. And, then the fear of that is that like maybe that these bells and whistles, these extremists or whatever, bring more people to the thing and keep people clicking. And maybe journalism is a dying industry, and it would something that would focused on just getting the content to people would fail. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. This is not easy. I mean, I have to give Jack Dorsey some credit because he's made a very successful product that many people are addicted to. He's a smart guy. There's no doubt about it.
Tearing the country apart, though.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
So, what I love. I mean, I don't care about my followers on Twitter. I'd love for it to be meaningless. The followers. I'd love to have a different platform in which we can report these things out and get them shared and get them seen by people. I mean, like the biggest thing you get from Twitter, right? When I do my stories, and it really helps somebody who's in a rights group like SPLC, is that journalists see it, right? I mean, I remember when I did the Stephen Miller investigation on Stephen Miller's emails, and I put so much work into it and so much heart into it, like that. I think AOC was like the first person to retweet it. That was like big person who like got it going, and I cried, man. I was like, I seriously did. I was like, because I'd worked for so long and no major publications wanted to join up with us. The Guardian did, actually. Kudos to them. But like, nobody did. Everybody was just like, no. And I had just so much of emotion invested, and I couldn't sleep because I was like worried about like what could happen. Like, there's a lot of anxiety. It was a big story for me. And like, Twitter really helped me. I mean, like it got that going. And then by that night, New York Times had written it up and Washington Post had written it up. And then there was coverage on MSNBC, and there was like all this stuff that wouldn't have happened without Twitter.
Right.
So, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. I mean, there's got to be, Twitter will probably, I'm sure, argue to me like, well, you like that? Well, this is the way it is. This is, if you want that, you have to have that. I would like my utopian vision would be something where we can actually reach people with serious reporting, and not be hijacked by like the post-millennial. Do you know what the post-millennial is?
No.
Oh my God. It's like this Canadian junk news website. It's co-founded by somebody who worked for Russia Insider, of course. And it's like, they run one source stories on Posobiec tweets. And, it is
that kind of thing. Yeah.
Jared Holt did some reporting on them, found that they actually paid people $5 a post. Like, just what? Like, I once got into an argument because they were really defaming me in a thing. They had an extremist write an article about me and Luke. And, I got into a shouting match with them on like over the phone about it. And I was like, these are a bunch of kids. These are like 21-year-old kids in an apartment. Who knows who's funding this crap? And, on Twitter, it is given equal weight to the very seriously reported investigation in Los Angeles Times or whatever. I mean, there's got to be a way to have some sort of, get a way to get serious reporting to people and get it seen widely like it is on Twitter without this horror.
The equalization is quite good, though. To argue the flip side of that is it's good that, a small company or a small publication like Narrative can get it get to a wider audience. I mean, that's really helpful. But you're right. Yeah. You're right. Ultimately, you can get a lot of junk in here.
I'm talking about this post-millennial publishes literal disinformation. You're not doing that. That's right. that I want to clarify what I'm saying here.
Yeah,
independent. I don't want it to. I also include independent journalists there. I'm not talking about just the LA Times or which is the example I mentioned. Or whatever. I mean, independent journalists do essential work. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there has to be some sort of editorial oversight that helps, give real things real credit rather than this just explosion of bad information, which is what Twitter really is now.
Yeah. The gatekeepers.
Gatekeeper. Well, the three of us could probably walk in there and do a nice diagram for Jack, showing him who the key players are that he should probably, suspend right now, and would probably end a lot of the conflict we'd have in the country politically, because we can prove to him that, they're disinformation agents or whatever.
He doesn't care, though.
He doesn't care.
The problem, Zev, if I may, I know we got to wrap it up, but again, shout out Brett Petticore. The problem here is we need laws. We need Congress to figure out how to regulate Twitter and Facebook and all social media so that this shit that goes on the platforms, so that those companies are held accountable for it, especially in a verified account. If a verified guy like Posobiec or Cernovich posts something that's demonstrably untrue and results in someone getting hurt or defamed or whatever, the platform that allowed the post to stay should be liable for damages for that.
Right.
That's what needs to happen. They need to figure it out. And unfortunately, a lot of the people in Congress don't understand it. I don't know that Chuck Grassley or Dianne Feinstein are going to be so great with the new tech to there aren't that many people on Capitol Hill who even understand what the problem is and how to fix it. So that's also part of the problem. We have to figure out what the laws should even be, what they should look like, how they would work, and make the members of Congress understand it enough to craft the laws to pass them. That's the thing that needs to happen.
Oh, well, we would also need to start passing laws in this country. That's also part of the problem.
Well, that's true.
On that note, we can't solve that problem. We should mention
Amen.
Elby's off tonight because she's still not got her voice back, but you can definitely catch her on The World Beneath, where some guy named Greg Oliar is the guest this week, I think. Is that correct?
And she's the guest on my show. There's a lot of Greg and LB talk.
Like
if you're missed Greg and LB talking, this is a good week for you.
So even though she's not here tonight, you can catch up with her there and all of Greg and LB's crossover mega experience this week.
It's like when Marvel and DC, when Spider-Man and Batman are together. Yeah,
it's amazing. And that's the show for tonight. We'll be back on Tuesday. I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you, Michael Edison Hayden, for being here tonight from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Great piece, and we'll keep following the story. And we'll see you again soon.
Thanks so much for having me.